First, we will talk about the safety procedures. IS 5216-1982 talks about recommendations on safety procedures and practices in the electrical works. A few points taken from the IS code are as follows. The warning boards should be attached on or adjacent to the live apparatus and at the limits of the zone in which work is being carried out. There should be adequate lighting where on the working areas, because inadequate lighting is by itself a dangerous source. Immediately before starting any work, the rubber gloves should be thoroughly examined to see whether they are in sound condition or not. Under no circumstances shall a person work with unsound gloves, mats, tools, platforms or other accessories and safety devices. It must always be remembered that life is of utmost importance and a small carelessness can lead to huge implications. Before a person puts on his rubber gloves to start work on a new job, he should check each one for cuts, cracks, weak spots by rolling it up tightly, beginning at the gauntlets and notice if the air escapes. The visual lamp test may also be adopted to determine the condition of the gloves. No person shall put his gloves into his coat or trousers pocket along with other tools. There is a chance that they may get torn. The short rod should be clean and dry. The branches of trees which are near the electrical apparatus or the working areas should be regularly trimmed. Now the next important thing we will discuss is permit to work. No person shall carry out or attempt any work on live mains or apparatus except with a permit to work and under the direct supervision of a competent person. When the person is working on live mains or apparatus, he shall always be accompanied by a second person who shall preferably be capable of rendering first aid and artificial respiration. When a man ascends a pole, he shall always make use of safety belts and rubber gloves. So the following: obtaining a permit to work and rectifying a fault carefully. Step 1 is that the DEL assigned to rectify the fault makes an entry in the shutdown register indicating the area of work and the purpose of the shutdown with time. This entry has to be signed by the JE or the engineer in charge. Next, we place the shutdown board over the VCB. The operator shuts down the VCB and hands over the lever to the DEL or keeps it with the JE. Lock system may also be used to prevent any accidental turn on of the supply. The DEL then goes and rectifies the fault. Then the DEL comes back, makes an entry in the shutdown register and gets his counter signed by the JE or engineer in charge that a work has been done. The lever or the key which was handed over to the DEL is handed back to the operator for turning on the VCB. Next, we see the general safety practices. IS code 3043-1987 talks about codes of practice for earthing. So first we will discuss two types of potentials, which are step potential and touch potential. Touch potential is the potential difference between the grounded metallic structure and a point on earth's surface separated by approximately 1 meters, whereas step potential is the potential difference between 2 points on the earth's surface separated by a distance of 1 meter. Now some of the general safety practices are: number 1, place yourself in a safe and secure position to avoid slipping, stumbling or moving backward against a live conductor or apparatus. Secondly, never ever rely on the protection and the care assumed to be exercised by others. You should make your own judgment on how the things are and take caution accordingly. In the event of near approach of a lightning storm, all outdoor works on electrical systems should cease. Always make a habit of being cautious. Be on the lookout for danger notice plates, danger flags, warning boards and signals, etc. Warn others when they are in danger near a live conductor. Now we will see a typical lineman gear. These are the equipments which every industrial staff must have for his or her own safety. The first is the helmets, then the safety goggles, the harness, fire resistant clothing, gloves, equipment belt, ropes and boots. The use of overalls, jumpers and coats having metal buttons, metal straps and similar metal fittings should be avoided. Loose clothing should not be worn. While working on live conductors, do not roll up the sleeves, as dry cloths give some protection against the shock. Do not wear shoes with nailed shoes. Do not wear shoes with nailed soles. The shoes should have sewn soles or preferably rubber soles. Metal keychains or watch chains should not be worn on outside of the clothing. There is always a possibility that they may come in contact with the live conductors or live apparatus. Treat all electrical conductors and apparatus always as live and consequently dangerous to the human life, unless it is positively known to be dead or properly earthed, and take precautions accordingly. All the voltages are dangerous. It should be borne in mind that even the lowest of the voltage shock may be fatal. Now we will discuss about the fire extinguishers that are to be used in case of electrical fires. From the diagram on the left hand side, we can see that for electrical fires, dry powder type extinguishers or ABC powder extinguishers and carbon dioxide extinguishers can be used. In no case should water extinguisher or wet chemicals should be used in case of electrical fires. It is dangerous to throw a stream of water, a wet blanket or a steam on the live mains or apparatus. Now coming to life saving techniques. IS 5216 part 2 1982 talks about life saving techniques. Now in this we can see that a current of the range of 1 milliampere can be felt by the body. When the range is 2 to 10 milliamperes, a person observes minor shock and might fall. 10 to 25 milliamperes of current results in loss of muscle control. A current of the range of 25 to 75 milliamperes is painful and may lead to collapse or death. On the other hand, a current of 75 to 300 milliamperes is almost always fatal. Now we will see what are the treatments for electrical shock. Mostly the lungs and diaphragm stop working and there is a good chance of revival by applying quick artificial respiration. In case of severe shock, normal breathing may not be restored up to 3 to 4 hours. Artificial respiration should therefore be continued until the death is diagnosed by a physician. If a person is still in contact with the apparatus that has given him a shock, the electrical circuit should be switched off at once. If it is not possible to switch off the electrical circuit, no time should be wasted in removing the body from the live conductor. The victim's body should never be touched with bare hands. Instead, rubber gloves should be used. However, if there are no gloves, then the victim should be pulled off by his coat or shirt or any dry cloth, even by using a newspaper. It can be folded into a thickness of 3 or more and then it can be used. Wooden rods or broom handles may also be used to raise the body or to detach it from the live conductor. If the patient's clothes are smoldering, the sparks should first be extinguished. If the patient's clothes are smoldering, the sparks should first be extinguished. The patient should not be placed in such a position which may bring pressure on the burns he may have sustained. He should not be exposed to cold. When the patient revives, he should be kept lying down and not to get up without the advice of a doctor. Now some of the artificial respiration techniques are mentioned below. You can see and practice all of these. It is important to know the details of each one carefully. Every month, fire drills and practices must be conducted in each office so that every person gets accustomed to the surroundings and what to do in case of accidents. One must always remember that it is a matter of few seconds which can make the difference. These few seconds can save a person's life, and this perfection will occur when the fire drills are conducted regularly. That was all from my side. Thank you and have a great day.